to the family, to the subject himself, who is currently recovering in the hospital, to all the officers and first responders on scene that did everything they could to make sure that he was well and taken to the hospital. I want to break it down real quick for you guys, a breakdown of a timeline of how the event transpired. At approximately 12:20 yesterday afternoon, May 19th, 2024, the Ocala Police Department received a phone call, 911 call, from a mom who brought her son to the Vines Hospital for a mental health intervention. They were there for some time, and then her son didn't want to stay there, and he left on foot, and a mom called us for some help. She gave a good description of what he was wearing and said that he likely left on foot southbound on 27th Avenue, which is 475A. At 12:38, two officers contacted him in the 5500 block of Southwest 27th Avenue. They entered into dialogue with him, and within 20 seconds, he showed his hands. In his right hand, he was armed with what looked like a fixed blade knife. In his left hand, he had a large canister of bear deterrent spray. Essentially, it's a higher concentration of pepper spray for animals. They negotiated with him for about 5 seconds. In that time period, he made several statements where he wanted to end his life. The officers did everything they can to deter him from any of that. In a moment, we're going to watch the video, and you may see where he's waving his arms, essentially waving the knife around, waving the pepper spray around, and he's not listening to what the officers are saying. Other officers on scene, one is armed with less lethal, a taser, and the other one is also armed with less lethal, a 40 millimeter multi-launcher. Essentially, it fires a 40 millimeter round. And then the other officer was armed with his handgun. The officers, after negotiations, during negotiations, they tried to almost simultaneously tase him, which was ineffective. They also hit him in the lower body, the thigh area, with a 40 millimeter, which was ineffective. And while all that was happening, he opened up with the pepper spray, which has a range of 40 feet, and he was spraying the officers as he charged toward the one officer with a handgun. At that point, the officer with a handgun fired multiple rounds and subdued the subject. As soon as that happened, officers then went into life-saving measures and did everything they can to apply first aid while medics were en route. Ocala Fire Rescue and/or Marion County Fire Rescue arrived at 12:51, and at 1:01, the subject was transported to an area hospital for treatment. As we know right now, he went through several surgeries. He survived through the night. He is recovering as we speak, with more surgeries planned throughout today and the coming week. With that, I do want to show you a video. Although edited, it will give you a glance or just a snapshot of what the officers experienced yesterday afternoon.
What's up, David? What's going on, man? Your mom's calling us all worried.
is essentially what happened yesterday between 12:38 and 12:44 yesterday afternoon. Again, the officers did everything they can to de-escalate as trained and use less lethal as trained until the actions of the subject force us to use lethal force. So, with that, do you guys have any questions at all about the video?
Yes. Did they tase him before he started using the pepper spray?
It was seconds before, yes. When you hear the one officer saying impact, 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 that's the warning given so that all the other officers know he's about to pull the trigger on the 40 millimeter multi-launcher. At that same time is when the other officer deployed his taser. And you can, if you listen to the video, you can hear on the taser. There's you can push up on a lever that gives an audible warning. It's usually to draw someone's attention to that officer, say, hey, this is about to happen, but it didn't draw his attention, and the taser was ineffective.
Did the family tell the officers that he was armed with a knife and pepper spray?
No, ma'am. The question was asked. I listened to the 911 tape before I came in here, and there's a whole protocol of questions that the dispatchers asked, and Mom said she thought he was not armed by any means.
And the officers follow protocol when it comes to dealing with someone who's having a mental health crisis, right? That they follow protocol.
Yes, ma'am. You know, ideally, in any situation we're dealing with someone who might be having a mental health episode, we assess them for criteria for Baker Act. You know, this is a worst case scenario. None of us wake up in the morning saying, this is the day I'm going to use lethal force on somebody. But yes, they did everything by their training and by protocol for this incident.
Are you going to entertain having a crisis intervention team now?
So in the past, the chief and I and former Mayor Gwynn, I believe we entertained it then, and certainly when the chief is back in town, we'll talk about it again.
This may be a similar question, but I wanted to ask about the suspect's mental health and the need for more mental health services for people that you guys avoid getting to this point.
Well, and so good question. You know, the family was doing everything they could to get him help. You know, they lived out in the county. He was acting erratic the night before. He wasn't sleeping. He was saying suicidal thoughts. So they were doing everything they could to get him to the receiving facility, which they did. It's just he didn't want to be there, and he left on foot before law enforcement could get there to make an assessment.
From what I understand, Gainesville has a ride-along program where mental health officers will go out in the field with police officers for situations like this. Is that something that the Ocala Police Department is considering or has considered?
That is to the other question over here. It's CIT, right? And that is where a clinician, a trained clinician, is paired up with law enforcement to handle mental health calls like this, but not to this extent. You know, in this case, we would never have a civilian in that environment where they're in harm's way. So they handle, typically, from my understanding, if a call for service goes out that someone is suicidal, and either at home or they can go make an assessment for Baker Act, and essentially they are just a huge resource for the individual and their family. Right.
How often do officers come in contact with folks who are in a mental health crisis? And is this an issue here in Ocala that needs more resources?
And I wish I had the numbers. We Baker Act often, you know, just on the simple word from a family member or medical staff. or the individual, him or herself. But the goal is to get them help. Not the end result. We don't want to be doing CPR and life-saving measures on somebody. So, but I wish I had the numbers for you. I don't, but it's something that law enforcement handles on a daily basis.
Mental health experts were on their way to the scene, and even if there was, there's probably not time for something like that.
Yes, no, sir. There were no mental health experts. Now, at the Vines, there were, but even before they could intervene, he left on foot.
Even if you'd called one, there probably wasn't time for even an expert to get on scene, considering how fast that seemed to go down in the video.
No, as quickly as that transpired, we wouldn't even have a non-sworn individual in that environment. We wouldn't.
What's the status of the officers that were involved?
All the officers they're good, they're fine. 3 of them were affected by the pepper spray. So they got medical attention at the scene, and the one officer who utilized lethal force is currently on administrative leave until FDLE obviously has come in. They're going to conduct their investigation. We have administrative reviews that we do ourselves prior to the officers going back to work.
Is FDLE leading the investigation or assisting it?
FDLE, it's their investigation. Anything else?
Yes, Mayor?
Yes.
If you would.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Considering the situation now, is the city going to pass funding or get funding for crisis intervention people?
I will tell you that this is a focus of mine, is to improve the mental health of the community. We're always going to be looking at measures of how we can address this issue. And even a question was asked is, are there services that are available? I think we could do more, and we're going to be looking at that. So, it's just, my heart goes out to the family, and my prayers are with the family and the subject and the officers involved. This is a tough situation, for them to be in, and what they had to go through. But we're always going to be looking at how we can improve our services in the community.
Is he going to be charged with anything?
So the answer to that is yes. He is currently under a 24-hour guard at the hospital. He's looking at several felonies for aggravated assault, battery on a law enforcement officer.
Does he have a prior to, does he have like a history with?
I don't know if he's got a criminal background, or it'd be presumptuous of me to say that he already has a mental health background.
Could you specify the charges that are being brought against him?
2 counts of aggravated battery and 1 count of aggravated assault.
Anything else?
Looking back on this, I know it's only been a short period of time, but is there anything off the top of your head that could have been done differently?
In looking at the video and listening to the audio and looking at our policies, everything looks spot on. The officer did absolutely what they were supposed to do and how they're trained to react to these situations. Anything else? All right. Thank you.